Hi there, I'm Craig Taylor, Solutions Architect at HT2 Labs. For the past 9 months, or since the beginning of 2016, I have been building, designing and facilitating a massive open online course, or MOOC, entitled e-learning, Beyond the Next Button. Each month of the year we open up a new level and we expose some different ideas, some emerging technology, some emerging trends that we at HT2 think L&D practitioners should be keeping a close eye on for the future. Each month, as each month goes by, I look back on the previous month and reflect upon a few things. Sometimes my reflection videos will be around what I've actually learnt from that subject matter that I put together. Other times my reflections will be on the way that the course and the cohort of people actually behaved, how the course was designed, any facilitation, things that have cropped up that make me pause and think. Sometimes I make one of these reflection videos and I cover both of those areas. On this occasion though, I'm going to look back to August, which was last month, where we looked at the subject of video. And something has kind of cropped up that's made me think about the way that we ask questions or question types. The way that Curator works, which is the platform that this MOOC has been facilitated through, you highlight a piece of content to people, you display a piece of content, any type of digital content. You then ask a question about it to get people thinking, people respond to that question, and then hopefully conversations start to happen. That's a fairly typical type of curator interaction. The questions that I normally ask are fairly typical as well. They're normally a question that I pose people in relation to the content and they come up with their responses to that. Last month I did something a little different. Last month I presented a piece of content to people and then I said to them, if you were writing a question about this content, what would that question be? Basically, I wanted to try and get them inside my head and think the way that I think to come up with a question for themselves. I then went even further and said, once you've posed your question, look at the questions that other people have posed and answer their question. So rather than everybody answering one question, my question, people were answering one another's. I thought it worked on lots of different levels, and I think pedagogically it's a very good thing to do. It gets people thinking deeper about the content and how they might want other people to think about it. That's the theory. In practice, very few people actually posed a question of their own. They commented, they made a remark, they said something, but very few people actually posed a question of their own in relation to the content that I displayed. And I've been wondering why that is. I don't necessarily have an answer. I've got no data or research to back up. My gut feeling is though that the harder you make people work, the less chance there is of them doing what you ask them to do. Now, the MOOCs that we put together, I class the audience as fairly fickle. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but they're free courses. People don't have to undertake them. Very often people are finding time to slot them in amongst their day jobs and their evening activities and their personal lives. So I'm not knocking people that are undertaking our MOOCs, but they're perhaps a very different audience with very different motivating factors than inside a business, inside an organisation, where people have to respond to the question, where people have to do it, where there's perhaps an equal part of stick being used as much as a carrot in terms of motivating people. Like I said with many of my reflection videos, I don't necessarily have the answers. I'm really just posing the questions and thinking out loud, if you like. It was just very interesting that if I ask a standard type of question, even if it's a challenging question, just a standard type of question, people respond, and they respond in bucket loads. If I change tack slightly, if I think about that question and do something a little bit off piece, a little bit different, people don't tend to respond in the same way. So that's my reflection video, recorded in September for the month of August, where we were looking at the subject of video. Thanks for watching.